Welcome to Design of Machine Element 2, second module. In this class, we'll discuss about some of the important topics with respect to design of spring. Today, we shall derive an expression for helical spring, that is stresses in the helical spring for two cross section, that is one for circular and the for non-circular cross section. So after that, we have to solve some of the problems with respect to design of spring. In this topic, this is the diagram given here, that is axial loaded helical spring. So this is the free body diagram showing that wire is subjected to torsional shear and direct shear. So we have to derive stresses in helical spring for circular wire. So there are two basic equation for design of helical spring always. The one is load stress equation and load deflection equation. So always the helical spring, so that is made from the wire of circular cross section. You can see here the diameter of that circular wire is small letter d, and capital letter D is nothing but coil diameter. So there will be number of active coils in the spring, so usually denoted by small letter I. The spring is always subjected to axial force, usually the compressive load. Spring is subjected to axial force denoted by capital letter F. In the wire of the helical spring, so is we have to uncoil this one. So when it becomes straightened, so it takes the shape of a uniform bar of circular cross section, because if you uncoil this one, so you'll get it's nothing but bar. So whatever the spring, so you have to consider it as equivalent to bar. So the bar then having diameter same as whatever the diameter of wire, so that is D. The diameter of the bar is always equal to wire diameter of the spring. Consider a helical spring, compression spring made up of circular wire and subjected to an axial load of F. So if these are the important parameters, like D, capital letter D is nothing but pitch diameter, or we call it as mean diameter of the spring. So it is denoted by capital letter D and unit is millimeter. Small letter D is nothing but diameter of wire, it's also in millimeter. I is nothing but number of active coils in the spring. So how many turns, active turns are there in the coil, is denoted by small letter I. So capital letter F is nothing but axial load on the spring. G is modulus of rigidity of that spring material, and tau is the maximum stress in the helical spring. So this is one of the important parameter, that is spring index is nothing but ratio of mean diameter of the spring to diameter of the wire. So Y is nothing but actual deflection of the wire. So usually the length of one coil in the spring, if you straighten that one, so that length will be pi into capital letter D, because circumference pi into capital letter D, so where D is the mean diameter of the spring. So if there are I number of active coils in the spring, therefore the length of equivalent bar, so is nothing but pi D into I, because there will be I number of terms, so terms we have to multiply with I to the pi into D, so that's why pi D I. So this is one of the important thing. Usually the bar is fitted with the bracket at each end. So you know spring is always subjected having bracket at the both end. So length of the bracket is usually equal to mean coil radius of the spring. So that is nothing but capital letter D by 2. If I consider the radius of that one, so that will be capital letter D by 2. So that is one of the important thing. If the force F, if acting at the end of the bracket, because always bracket is subjected to always it will induce, even though the applied force is compressive force, the torsional shear stress that will induce in the bar. So what is the amount of how to find out torque? So that we have to know. So torque always is given by T is equal to F into radius. So radius is nothing but mean radius of the coil. So that is nothing but F into D by 2. So F into D by 2. So if I write torsion equation, so that is for spring wire, because shear stress always induced in the wire. So that is equal to pi divided by 16, pi divided by 16 into tau 1. So tau 1 is nothing but torsional shear stress in the bar, so into small letter dq, because with respect to a wire always shear stress will induce. That's why you have to this is the equation. It's nothing but T by J into R. So J is nothing but pi d1 to the power 4 divided by 32 into R1. So R small letter R, so it's nothing but D by 2. So you will get this equation, that is pi by 16 into tau 1 into dq. So now if I write the equation for torsional shear stress in the bar, so it's given by 8 FD divided by pi into dq. So this is one of the important equation. It's nothing but stress induced in the bar. So in addition to torsional shear stress tau 1 induced in the wire, the following stress also act on the wire. So there will be two more stress that may act in the spring, that is when the equivalent bar is bent in the form of helical coil. So there are additional stress. So on the account of two important factors, the one is direct, or we call it as transverse shear stress in the spring wire because of load F. The second one, when the bar is bent in the form of coil, the length of inside wire is always less than the length of outside fiber. So because of this there will be a stress concentration at the inside fiber of wire. So that is due to curvature of the wire. So this is two important stress. So we know that direct stress due to load F is given by, should be noted by tau 2 is given by F by A. So F is nothing but whatever the applied load divided by area of the wire is given by, that is circular cross section, pi by 4 d square. If I simplify this one, so you will get 4f divided by pi into d square. So I will consider this as equation number 2. The resultant shear stress always in the wire. So this is resultant stress consists of superimposition of torsional shear stress, direct shear stress, and additional shear stress due to curvature of the coil. So that is given by tau equal to tau 1 plus or minus tau 2. Usually we are going to add these two stresses. So because of this, the stress in the spring wire on the account of all these factors, so you get tau. The positive sign is used for inner edge of the wire, and negative sign is used for outer edge of the wire. Since stress is maximum always at the inner edge of the wire, so therefore tau is given by tau 1 plus tau 2. Now we have to add equation number 1 and equation number 2. So that is already we derived expression for tau 1 as well as expression for tau 2. So expression for tau 1 is 8fd divided by pi into small letter dq plus this is nothing but direct shear stress. It's given by 4f divided by pi d square. So after simplifying, so you'll get if you take sum of the term, that is 8fd divided by pi into dq. So if you take outside, you'll get 1 plus d divided by 2 into d. We know that the spring index is given by always capital letter C. It's equal to d by d. So now we have to substitute in the previous equation because we have to replace d by d as C. So therefore equation for shear stress is given by 8 into Fd divided by pi into d cube 1 plus 1 divided by 2 into C. So this whole term, so I'll consider as one factor, that is Ks. So because this is constant C, that is nothing but d by d, capital letter D by small letter d. So I'll consider this as Ks is nothing but shear stress factor. Therefore equation is given by, because I will replace now 1 plus 1 divided by 2 into C, that I will replace by Ks is nothing but shear stress factor. Therefore equation becomes tau equal to 8Fd divided by pi into d cube into K suffix S. So I will consider this as equation number 3. In order to consider the effect of both direct shear stress as well as the curvature of the wire, one scientist, that is A.M. Wall, he derived the expression for resultant stress, so which includes both stress, that is torsional shear stress as well as direct shear stress, and stress concentration due to curvature. So he introduced one more factor, that is we call it as wall stress factor. So it's one of the important factor in the design of spring. So that is denoted by capital letter K. So the equation becomes 4c minus 1 divided by 4c minus 4 plus 0.615 C. So in your data book you can find this expression, that is called the wall stress factor. It's given by equation number 11.2 A. The wall stress factor K may be considered as composed of two sub-factors, that is one is Ks and Kc. So K is nothing but Ks into Kc. So Kc is nothing but stress concentration factor due to curvature effect, and Ks is nothing but stress factor due to shear stress. So this is about wall stress factor, and this is one of the important equation, that is from equation number 11.2 A. So wall stress factors that provides a simple method to find out the resultant stress in the spring. So the resultant stress is always maximum at the inside radius of the coil. So in normal application, the spring is usually designed by using wall factors, so which is nothing but K equal to Ks and Kc. So this is one of the important equations, so that you have to multiply. So that is nothing but Ks into Kc. Now coming to the deflection of the spring. Deflection of the spring of circular cross section, that is nothing but angular deflection, is given by theta. So how to calculate this theta? That is with the help of torsion equation, that is d by j is equal to g theta by L. So you have to with the help of that equation, torsion equation, general torsion equation, if you use, you can find out value of theta. So where torque is nothing but force into radius. The radius is nothing but mean radius of the coil, so it's nothing but torque equal to F into capital letter D by 2, and L. So L is nothing but the total length of the bar we have to consider. So that's why you have to multiply by number of active coils in the spring. So the active coils is denoted by small letter I. You can see here I into pi d, because we have to consider circumference pi into capital letter D. So divided by, so j into g. So j is nothing but polar moment of inertia of the wire. So it is given by pi into small letter d to the power 4 divided by 32. So into g. G is nothing but modulus of rigidity. So after substitution, you will get this equation, that is theta equal to 16f d square into I divided by g into d to the power 4. So this is one of the important equation for angular deflection that is given in your data handbook with the help of this equation, that is 11.4. So the previous equation, that is shear stress equation, and this angular deflection along with the actual deflection in the spring. So these are very important to solve the problem. Now how to find out actual deflection of the spring? The actual deflection of the spring is denoted by small letter y. So for small values of theta, that is always given by theta into length of the bracket. So length of the bracket is always d by 2, capital letter d by 2 is nothing but radius. So if you substitute all this value, that is y equal to theta into d by 2, that is capital letter d by 2. So you get this equation. So that also there in your data handbook, that is from equation number 11.5a. Now coming to the stress and deflection of stress on deflection in helical spring of a non-circular wire. So in the similar way, so because here only the change in the cross-sectional area of the spring instead of circular spring. So whatever the cross-section of the spring wire is rectangular in shape, and that's why the area equation becomes different. That is B into H, the cross-sectional area of the wire. So in the same how you derive expression for the in the circular wire, in the similar way we need to derive the expressions, and finally you will get this equation for shear stress from equation number 11.13a. So you will get equation for shear stress or torsional shear stress. Similarly you will get a deflection equation, the next equation, that is 11.13b in your data handbook. So this is about non-circular wire, because whatever the usage of this type of spring is very less. So one of the important spring in the design of spring, that is helical spring. So what we discussed in the last topic, that is design of helical spring. So we derived expression for stresses as well as deflection in the helical spring of circular wire. In the helical spring there are two more important types of spring. So that is nothing but compression spring and tension spring. You can see here based on which type of force acting on the helical spring. So based on application of force, we classified as two types. One is tension and compression spring. Tension spring is something but when it is subjected to tension, whatever the spring is subjected to tension, it means that whatever the coils, that is it becomes stretched, and so whatever the stress induced in the wire is always shear stress. Even though you are apply tensile or compression load, the stress in the wire is always of shear in nature. The external force tends to shorten the spring in case of compression spring. In extension spring, always spring is elongated. In both compression and extrusion spring, the whatever the stress induced in the wire is always of shear in nature, that is nothing but shear stress will induce in the wire. So now coming to the next topic, that is concentric spring. So you can see here there are two A and B figure. So this is two different form of spring. A concentric spring always consists of two helical compression spring. So you can see here, so there will be always two helical compression spring. So in one inside other, so having same axis remains same, but two compression springs are along the axis, the axis will be same, but one inside other. You can see here two. One is inside, another one is outside. So it is also called as nested spring. So because you can see it's like a nested shape. So uh, in general there are two spring. However, in certain application, concentric spring consists of three coaxial spring. So namely inner, middle, and outer spring. So this is about concentric spring. Main advantage of this type of spring, because we have two spring in the instead of using one spring, because one spring is inside another, therefore load carrying capacity is increased, so that heavy load can be transmitted, so in a restricted space. That is one of the important advantage of using this type of spring, concentric spring. The second advantage is the operation of the mechanism, so continues even if one of the spring breaks. So that's why this can be used in fail safe system, because in some of the cases, because of heavy load, so the whole, instead of uh, failing whole system, sometimes the whole system will fail, so it leads to the total failure. But if you use concentric spring, so if one spring fails, the whatever the load, so that will carry by another spring. In such cases, you can use this type of spring. So that's why uh, we can use for fail safe system. So fail safe system is nothing but in order to avoid the total failure of the system. So this is one of the important type of spring. So that is commonly used in most of the application. So that's about concentric spring. Now coming to the springs under fluctuating loads. When the spring is subjected to uh, fatigue load, or we call it as fluctuating load, the load is always fluctuating from minimum value to maximum value with respect to time. So in many applications, the force acting on the spring is not constant, but varies with respect to its magnitude, and with the time, it means that varies in magnitude will not be same with respect to time. The best example of for the spring that is under subjected to fluctuating load is wall spring. So wall spring commonly used in automotive engine, so it is always subjected to millions of stress cycle during its lifetime. So on the other hand, the spring in the linkage and mechanism, so which are subjected to comparatively less number of stress cycle. The spring subjected to fluctuating stress, you know how to design. So there will be two important criteria. One is for design for infinite life, and design for finite life. We already studied this in the last semester in design of fatigue load, design of machine member against the fatigue loads. So if I consider a spring, so that is subjected to external fluctuating force, so which changes its magnitude from F max to F minimum. So we already derived the expression for shear stress in the helical spring. So you know that whatever the equation, so where F is nothing but the load acting on the spring, so that is denoted by F. But so here it is fluctuating load, so therefore you have to consider F max and F minimum. It means that the load is subjected to external force which changes its magnitude from F max to F minimum in the load cycle. So the mean force, how to calculate mean force, is nothing but we do not denote it as F suffix m, so it is nothing but F max plus F minimum divided by 2. Similarly, force amplitude Fa can be calculated as F max minus F minimum divided by 2. So mean stress can be calculated. So we already derived the expression. The same expression we have to replace uh, wherever tau, that is shear stress, tau we have to replace by tau m. So tau m is nothing but mean torsional stress, it denoted by tau m is nothing but ks into 8 fmd divided by pi d cube. So we have to replace f as fm. Similarly, we have to consider one more expression for that is nothing but torsional shear stress amplitude, or we call it as torsional stress amplitude. It is denoted by tau a. So here we have to consider the effect of stress concentration due to curvature in addition to direct shear stress. So that's why you have to use wall factor, that is ks into kc into 8 f. So f we have to replace into f suffix a. It's nothing but amplitude force 8 fa into d divided by pi into dq. So that is the two stresses, because we already discussed only one stress in the helical spring when it is subjected to static stress, that is af. Because here a varying load, that's why we have to consider two expression, one for mean stress amplitude, sorry, mean stress, that is nothing but mean torsional stress. Another one is torsional stress amplitude, it's nothing but tau a. There is a basic difference between the rotating beam specimen. So what we studied in the fatigue test, so we are using rotating beam specimen, but here we have to use spring wires, that is for fatigue testing we have to use spring wires. Usually spring wire is never subjected to completely reverse load. You know what you mean by completely reverse load. But here changing its magnitude from tension to compression, passing through the through zero with respect to time. It's nothing but completely reverse stress. But helical compression spring always subjected to purely compressive forces, because most of the compression spring we are used for the design application. So if you use helical extension spring, so that is nothing but tension spring, then it will be subjected to purely tensile forces. So that is two important classification of helical spring. Usually the spring wire are subjected to pulsating shear stress, so it may vary from 0 to maximum. It's nothing but endurance limit in shear. For the variation of the stress, the variation will be usually from 0 to maximum value. You can see here fatigue diagram is given here. So we already discussed same type of equation, that is Goodman equation and Soderberg equation. So this is nothing but fatigue diagram for we considering Soderberg equation. The mean stress is tau m. It is plotted on x-axis. You can see here this is tau m in this axis, means we call it as abscissa. While stress amplitude is nothing but variable stress, is denoted by tau a. So on the ordinate or y-axis, so point A and B you have to locate. So point A is nothing but at x distance tau e divided by 2, and y distance again tau e by 2. So indicates the failure point of the spring wire in a fatigue test with the pulsating stress cycle. Similarly, point B on the abscissa indicates failure point under static condition when the mean stress reaches torsional yield strength. So torsional yield strength is denoted by tau y. So therefore line AB, so AB line we consider as line of failure. So this is about line AB. To consider the effect of factor of safety, so we have to construct one more line. So it's nothing but parallel line we have to construct, that is CD line. So that we have to construct from on the abscissa in such a way that the OD they should be equal to tau y divided by factor of safety. It's given here. Fs is nothing but factor of safety. The OD distance is given by tau y divided by FOS, or factor of safety. So this is about one more line to consider the effect of factor of safety. The line CD is always parallel to line AB. So any point on the CD, such as one of the important line, so that is to consider the factor of safety. So this line we also call it as design line, because it is used to find out permissible stresses with the particular factor of safety. So this is about fatigue diagram. If you use a common triangle, that is CRP and COD, so you'll get one expression. So that expression is called Soderberg equation. So that equation can be used in the design of spring when subjected to fluctuating stress. So that is nothing but Soderberg equation. If you exceed this one, so there will be failure of the spring takes place. So that's why CD act as a safe line, so, or we call it as design line. We have to design only in this region, that is line CD. So A and B are nothing but failure point. If you cross this region, so that will be the failure of the spring takes place. So that is about Soderberg equation. So that can be used in the design of spring when subjected to fluctuating stress. Now coming to the important topic in the design of spring. So this is one more type of spring, so that is called as leaf spring. So it's also called multi-leaf spring, so are widely used for suspension of cars, trucks, or railway wagons. So this spring consists of a series of flat plates, you can see here. So there will be a number of plates, usually semi-elliptical shape. You can see the shape is usually elliptical in nature, semi-elliptical in nature. So that's why usually having semi-elliptical shape. The flat plates are called as leaves. So this we call it as leaves, hence we call it as leaf spring. The leaves have graduated length. You can see length is gradually increasing. The leaf at the top has, whatever the leaf at the top, we call it as having maximum length always, because the top length of the leaf is always maximum length. The length gradually decreases from the top of the leaf to bottom leaf. You can see here the first leaf is having maximum length, the next length is gradually decreasing. Similarly again the next leaf gradually decreasing, and last leaf is having minimum length. So the longest leaf at the top we call it as master leaf. So it's a very important thing. The toppest leaf we call it as master leaf. So it is bent at both end to form spring eyes. So this is usually bent, so in order to form spring eye. So this is called spring eye. You can see here. So it is bent like this. So that is called master leaf. Two bolts inserted to these eyes to fix the leaf spring to the automobile body. So this will be used to fix this leaf spring to the automobile, either it may be in the vehicle. So all leaves are held together. You can see here all leaves are held together by means of one bolt. That bolt we called it as U bolt. So they mentioned this U clips, that is center bolt. So that is two U bolt and center clips are used to held together. All leaves are held properly. It should be very tight, so that we have to use U bolts and center clip. So ribbon clip are provided to keep the leaves in alignment and prevent the lateral shifting of leaves. So this is called ribbon clip. So that can be used uh, to prevent lateral shifting, otherwise it will move in the lateral direction. So in order to prevent that one, so this type of clips are used, that is called ribbon clip. So multi-leaf spring are provided with one or two extra full length leaves in addition to master leaf. So always extra full length leaves are provided, one or two in addition to master leaf. The extra full length leaves are stacked between the master leaf and graduated length leaves. So that is about full length leaf and graduated leaf. The extra full length leaves are provided to support the transverse shear force, that will support the transverse shear force. In the analysis of leaf spring, the leaves are divided into two groups. Mainly, one we call it as master leaf, along with the graduated length leaves, forming one group, and another one is extra full length leaves. So, in some of the leaves are same length, extra full length. That leaves we call it as extra full length leaves. How many number of extra full lengths are given by small letter I? So uh, I is nothing but total number of leaf, total number of leaves in the leaf spring. IF is nothing but number of extra full length leaves, and I suffix G is nothing but number of graduated length leaves including master leaf. So I is nothing but total number of leaf, IF is nothing but number of extra full length leaves, IG is nothing but number of graduated length leaves, and it may having width and thickness. So it is given by in your data and book. So width is given by B, and thickness is given by H. So that is there in your data and book. So usually in your data and book start from page number 180 onwards, that is multi leaf spring. So leaf spring will start from page number 179. You can find this figure in your data and book, that is from figure 11.12. So that is nothing but laminated leaf spring. So there in your data and book it is given as F, because I have taken sketch from other book. So W, instead of W we have to use F. So F is nothing but force applied at the end of the spring. So usually unit is Newton, and they are given one length, that is 2 into L. So in your data and book it is given as a small letter L. So L is nothing but length of the cantilever, because we are considered as one end fixed and one end free. So because we are considered only half portion, that is from here to here, so that is nothing but length of cantilever or half length of semi elliptical spring. We also call it as half length of semi elliptical spring. So that is about force acting on the at the end of the spring. Coming to the next topic, that is equalized stresses and nipping of leaf spring. So usually the full length leaves is whatever the stress, that is more than whatever the stress in the graduated leaf. We can say around 50% greater than stress in the graduated leaves, because stress in the full length leaves usually more. So in order to utilize the material to the best advantage, all the leaves should be equally stressed. So how to obtain this? So there will be two important condition, so that can be used to obtain equalized stresses in the spring. So first one, by making the full length leaves of smaller thickness than graduated leaves. The thickness of the full length leaves you have to make smaller. So that what will happen, the full length leaves will induce smaller bending stress due to small distance. If a distance changes, the bending stress also changes. If a smaller distance means the bending stress also induced in the leaves of whatever the magnitude, that will be small or less. So due to small distance from the neutral axis to edge of the leaf, because edge of the leaf to neutral axis, whatever the distance, that will be small distance. So that is the first condition may be obtained for equalized stresses. So second one, so that is very important, so that is called nipping. So nipping of leaf spring. So by giving a greater radius of curvature, so this is one method. By giving a greater radius, you can see here the radius of the leaf spring changes. uh, if you give a greater radius of curvature to the full length leaves than graduated leaves, so you can see here that there will be small gap, that because of variation in the radius of curvature. Before the leaves are assembled to form a spring, so we have to give greater radius of curvature to the full length leaves than graduated length leaves. So this is nothing but graduated leaf, and this is nothing but full length leaves. Before leaves are assembled to form spring, uh, we have to give certain gap. By doing so, we have to uh, leave some space, so that gap or clearance will be left between these two leaves. So this gap is denoted by capital letter C. So this initial gap we call it as nip, or it's denoted by capital letter C. So it is called nip. C is nothing but NIP. So that is one more method to obtain equalized stress in the leaf spring. So there is a two condition. One is by making the full length leaves of a smaller thickness, because what will happen, the small distance from the neutral axis to edge of the leaves, if you get, so that will induce less number of bending stress. The second one is by giving a greater radius of curvature to the full length leaves than graduated leaves, when you have to give before leaves are assembled to form a spring. So with the help of this, a gap or clearance will be left between the two leaves. So this gap we call it as nick. When the central board holding the various leaves, if you leaves it is tightened after assembled with the help of center board, as we discussed in the last topic. So there will be a center board, so that can be used. All the leaves hold together, and we have to tighten. The full length leaf will bend back. So you can see a dotted line. The full length leaves will bend back, so have an initial stress in the direction opposite to that of normal load. So this is very important. So that process we call it as nipping, in order to obtain equalized stress in the leaf spring. Next, coming to the introduction to torsion and Belleville spring. So we already discussed about torsion spring. So torsion spring, when it is subjected to bending, so bending stress will induce in this spring. So that can be mainly used in the door hinges. So you may see in this type of spring. Always whatever the wire in the spring are subjected to bending stress. So another type of spring, that is Belleville spring. So Belleville spring consists of cone disc. So you can see it's like in the form of cone. So this is one more type of spring, special type of spring. So we also call it as cone disc spring. So this is about one more type of spring. So it has some of the important advantage. So one of the important advantages, the construction is very simple and easy to manufacture. So the Belleville spring is a compact spring unit. So it is especially used for where large force is desired for small deflection of the spring, and it provides a wide range of spring constant. So that's why it is making it versatile. So it can be provide any linear or non-linear load deflection characteristics. So some of the important advantage of Belleville spring. So this is about torsion spring and Belleville spring. So that completes your springs. Now only one important part is remaining, that is problems based on design of helical spring as well as design of leaf spring. So these are the important problems. So there is no direct steps, so I will tell you how to design a helical spring. So what are the factors you have to consider if you solve one problem? So most of the problem is similar. So while solving first problem, I will explain all the design procedure with respect to helical spring. The one of the important design, so that is design of helical spring. So there are three important objectives for design of helical spring. So what are the three important objective of design of helical spring? So that is it should possess, whatever the spring should possess sufficient strength to withstand the external load, because it has to should have sufficient strength so that it has to withstand whatever the external applied load. So that is the first objective of the design. So you have to design in such a way that so you should not fail for a external load. So it has to withstand so that it should have sufficient strength. So that is the main design factor or design consideration in the helical spring. The second one, so you should have a required load deflection characteristics, because if you plot load deflection characteristics, you should follow the linear relationship between load deflection characteristics. So that is second objective of the objective for the design of helical spring. And one more, so that is the spring should not buckle under external load. So usually the helical spring is subjected to compressive load, even though it is compressed, but should not buckle. So it should only subjected to compressive load. If it is buckles, you cannot design, because you have to design spring so based on considering buckling criteria such as Euler's theorem. So you have to use. So that is one more design objectives in order to design helical spring. Design of helical spring includes, very simple, we have to design helical spring means we need to find out all the dimensions of a spring. So what are the important dimension of spring? The important dimension of springs are, one is wire diameter, so it's nothing but small letter d, so that you have to find out anyhow. Second one, mean coil diameter, we need to find out capital letter d. So these two are very important dimension of spring. Small letter d is nothing but wire diameter, and capital letter d means nothing but coil diameter. So that is the wire diameter is usually less value, and coil diameter is always more than wire diameter. So then third one is we have to find out how many active coils are there. So how many active coils means we are not supposed to consider whatever the coils connected at the connected to the bracket, so you have to leave that one. You have to find out how many active coils are there in the spring for the design. Next we have to find out how many total number of coils are there. So that is nothing but how many total turns are there in the spring. Next we need to find out what is the solid length of the spring. I have already explained what do you mean by solid length. So solid length is nothing but, so there should not be a gap between the coil under the action of compressive load. So the two uh, successive coil, it should touch each other, so that there should not be any gap or free space between the two successive coils. So that is nothing but solid length. We have to find out what is the solid length of the spring. Then we need to find out free length of the spring. Free length of the spring is nothing but it should not subjected to any kind of external load. The spring is free, so that length we have to find out. So that length is always more than solid length. Then we need to find out what is the required spring rate. Spring rate we have to find out. There is nothing but K. What is the required K? Then you need to find out what is the actual spring rate. So these are the some of the parameters. So actual spring rate, so you have to directly you can use the formula. So required spring rate, so that is nothing but the difference between the load, so P F1 and F2, so divided by delta, so that is nothing but force per unit deflection, so it's nothing but a required spring rate. So we'll get, so actual spring rate from the expression we'll get. So that is the some of the design consideration of helical spring. So in next class we'll solve some of the important problems with respect to helical spring, as well as with respect to leaf spring. So in leaf spring you need to find out all the dimension with respect to a leaf, that is what is the length of the leaf, then what is the force acting on the eye, or force acting on the uh, graduated leaf, what is the force acting on the full length leaf, and what is the number of leaves are there, total number of leaf, and what is the number of master leaf along with the graduated leaf, and number of full length leaves. So number of full length is denoted by IF, I suffix small letter f, and the number of graduated length leaf is denoted by I suffix G. Then total number of leaves is denoted by uh, small letter I. So all dimension with respect to you have to find out. Then for equalizing stress, so we have to find out nip. Nip is nothing but capital letter C. So that is what is the space between the full length leaf and graduated length leaf. So that also you have to find out. For that you have equation in your data and book. So these are the nature of problem. So directly we'll solve problem in next class. Thank you.